murder and firearms offenses were released on bail. Those 4 persons were subsequently charged with the same offenses. In Justice D's court, 2 persons charged with murder and firearm offenses were released on bail. One of those persons was subsequently charged with a firearm offense. In that same court, 1 person charged with rape was released on bail, and that person subsequently committed another rape offense. These statistics, Madam President, are all for the period January to date, this year. There are many other such examples. One includes a man charged with murder that was released twice on bail and is now in the system charged with 3 murders. Released twice on bail, now charged with 3 murders. Sir? Yes, obviously. This evidence suggests that persons released on bail, if they recommit an offense, are likely to commit the same offense. The courts appear to be a revolving door, and people feel that the system needs to be fixed.
Yes.
Now, Madam President, let me make it very clear that I am not pointing fingers at anybody. I'm just giving facts. That's all I'm doing.
I can point. I point.
Crime is everybody's business. I'm going to give details, Madam President, of the extraordinary measures that the Prime Minister has accepted and announced to break the back of crime and restore law and order. I want to give a quote, Madam President, if I can have that quote, your indulgence, from the Prime Minister. I quote, "We believe that in a country as small as ours, serious crime should be tried within 12 months. Yes. And we believe that any assault or threat upon persons connected with the administration of justice, such as a judge, should be tried within 6 months. And by the way, administration of justice includes a judge, not limited to, a judge, a policeman, a prosecutor, a juror. 6 months, Madam President. We cannot have a situation where people feel that they can act with impunity and go to the very heart of the administration of justice by attacking a judge. Straight to the head of the line. 6 months trial for that person. That's what we believe." Yes. I continue the quote, Madam President. "I repeat my government's unflinching commitment to do whatever is necessary to reduce crime, the fear of crime, and guarantee law and order in our society. To this end, before Parliament adjourns for the summer recess," listen to this now, "we will bring legislation to enable the appointment of 20 Supreme Court judges." 20. Commencing September 2013, this September. For 12 months in the first instance, we will provide the resources to enable the courts to increase the number of criminal trials that can be conducted simultaneously. It is our hope, listen to this now, it is our hope that the courts will be in a position to conduct as many as 10 criminal trials at the same time. At the same time. 10 criminal trials at the same time for a year in the first instance. Initial indications are that the judiciary is prepared to initiate this measure to increase the number of criminal trials being conducted in the courts. And we believe that this would be an important tool in our crime-fighting arsenal, end quote. Now, Madam President and colleagues, you could imagine if we are able, with 10 courts, to routinely bring people to trial and consistently within 12 months. Now that doesn't send an indication of how serious we are
right.
about law and order and breaking the back of crime. What does? Yeah. 10 courts, 12 months, getting the trial, no players in the system here. Now, Madam President, those of us who have practiced before the courts will say, well, how are you going to make sure that happens now? Well, we don't play games, Madam President. We can tell you how we can make sure it happens. Let me hasten to add now, we are not the judiciary. So we don't implement, the judiciary implements. But we are the executive, and we are expressing our view as to what is an important crime-fighting tool, a deterrent to crime, an indication that we in this country believe in, have an abiding respect for the rule of law. And we want to make it clear. So, how will we support that thrust, Madam President? First of all, we'll do it by supporting the operational efficiency of those 10 courts. We will accelerate the implementation of integrated justice. I have spoken about integrated justice in this place before, Madam President, but let me repeat that primarily it is a calendaring system that will prevent duplication of bookings in the entire court system. Notwithstanding, those of you who are, every Bahamian knows it, but especially those who practice before the courts. And Madam President, you would have experienced this in a prior life. Notwithstanding the best efforts, double bookings continue to occur. And they are used to play the system. Right. Integrated justice will enable any judge seeking to set the matter down, to see the entire system all at once. It will not allow double booking. So, if lawyer X is booked in another court at the same time as the judge wishes to set a matter down for trial, the system just won't allow it. So several choices will have to be made. The lawyer may have to pass it brief to another lawyer. He may have to pass it to another person in his firm, or the judge may appoint someone on a crown brief or a public defender. I want to make it clear that the Inter-American Development Bank is assisting us with the implementation of integrated justice, and IBM is a significant partner. We are also, Madam President, going to support the appointment of 6 public defenders. The criminal defense bar is not as extensive as we might wish. A few weeks ago, Madam President, a particular lawyer had 2 matters in that lawyer's calendar before the Supreme Court and another matter before the Court of Appeal in the same week. So even though persons might be surprised, Madam President, that lawyers who control their own calendars will double and triple book, it's not unusual for this to happen. They do, lawyers do, double and triple book. Some people consider this an abuse, Madam President. Whatever else you might think it is, it certainly wastes precious court time and it increases backlog. A paper is before Cabinet, as the Prime Minister announced, or will be before Cabinet, for its consideration to subvent the Eugene DePuge Law School for the appointment of 6 public defenders. These persons, together with the utilization of the Crown Brief system, will enhance the number of persons available to act for accused persons in the event that the accused person cannot easily, for whatever reason, get someone from the private bar or the lawyer from the private bar that the person wishes to have has persistent scheduling conflicts. Continuing, we will provide the court with the necessary support to have an effective jury selection process. Recently, Madam President, we had the unsatisfactory circumstance whereby only 12 of a 48-member jury panel for a particular court were on the approved jury list for 2013. Only 12 of 48, Madam President. A similar circumstance pertained in another court. And we at the Attorney General's office have experienced recently where a judge had to intervene to disqualify jurors who had served in a previous session. And one, it was the immediate previous session. We want the judge to express concern about the growing trend of professional jurors. That's not the way the jury system is designed, Madam President. We, at the Office of the Attorney General, have issued complaints to the police of juror intimidation. So, we will make it easier for persons to serve on juries. For example, we have asked the relevant authorities to determine how we might make it easier for jurors to have reserved parking downtown. We also encourage and we will support the selection of family island persons who are willing to serve on jury panels in the Supreme Court in Nassau. They're Bahamian. Why not, Madam President? I want to emphasize, Madam President and colleagues, and to the Bahamian public generally, 10 courts sitting at the same time will require consistently 10 jury panels. So we call upon Bahamians to do their civic duty of serving on juries. It's not possible to say, oh, we got to do something about crime. And when attempts are made now to make sure that we break the back of crime, that you say, oh, but not me, I'm not serving on a jury. We urge Bahamians, please, when called upon, do your civic duty. Crime is everybody's business. Madam President, we will address the backlog in readiness of forensic evidence. Measures are now in place, are now progressing, to ensure that when forensic evidence is required for a trial, that the relevant reports will be available in time to provide them to the defense counsel before trial, and for the reports and the relevant witnesses to be available at trial. That must happen consistently while 10 courts sit, and we are putting that in place, Madam President. We are also addressing the backlog in pathology reports, Madam President. Steps are underway to appoint sufficient forensic pathologists to enable pathology reports to be made available to defense counsel before trial, and for the reports and the witnesses to be available at trial. Again, 10 courts sitting at the same time. The pathology reports have to be available consistently so that these matters can continue. If matters flow smoothly through the system, these reports must be available. We will increase the use of video link technology. I've spoken about this already, Madam President, the fact that in every building where there is the Supreme Court, there's either installed already a video link, which is the camera and all, or the capacity, sorry, not the camera, the television and the camera and all of that, or the capacity and the camera and the television are on order and about to be installed. So the capacity is in every building. It is going to be in every court. The reason that it's in every building at the moment is that while we order and install, some of these are old buildings, you have to pull the wires and everything apparently. I'm not an expert, but I'm told that this is what's happening. Upgrades, exactly. It's in every building because if Judge A wishes to use video link and the video link is in Judge B's court, Judge A and B, Judge B in the same building, they can negotiate amongst themselves to just move around on a particular day. This is just a short-term measure because we, like I said, we intend to have this facility in every court. This will, in short order, we will produce statistics, Madam President, to show how video link will decrease the timeline from charge to arraignment also. Arraignment is taking too long. We know that timeline can be reduced. VBI presented, now time for arraignment, taken too long. Before the House of Assembly, as we speak, there is a bill that will enable routine conduct by way of video link of arraignments, case management, and any other pretrial matter. Now that means that we will not have to bring, there's a remand court at Fox Hill, we will not have to bring the accused persons, not necessarily have to bring, of course this is a matter for the judge's discretion, but let's talk, I'm talking here about the ideal situation. I know that I'm not a judge. There will not need to be, the persons will not need to be brought downtown, or that day escort and the security and all of that. The tech and the cost. The technology enables, by video link, arraignments to happen from court at Fox Hill Prison. We will, at the remand court at Fox Hill, we will continue to use video link where leave is given to receive the testimony of witnesses. Madam President and colleagues, the cost savings resulting from video link, the time savings resulting from video link are inestimable. Yes. Inestimable. I can tell you we've had trials with persons in Alaska, various places in Europe, just to be able to have that evidence received by video link, rather than flying the person here, putting them up, room and board, having them here possibly for longer than was anticipated because the previous witnesses went on longer than expected. All of that over. Video link enables the person from wherever they are in the world to participate in court proceedings in the Bahamas, saving considerable time and money, Madam President. Sir? For everybody, civil and criminal, absolutely. Everybody. Madam President, continuing with operational efficiency in these extraordinary measures, we will encourage strict adherence to case management rules. I repeat, Madam President, 89 trials were conducted from May to May in New Providence, in the courts in New Providence, of 5 judges in New Providence criminal courts. We believe that if all of the stakeholders in the system strictly adhere to the criminal case management rules that were promulgated by the Chief Justice, 10 criminal courts sitting concurrently at the same time will enable the trial of at least 300 and perhaps as many as 400 criminal matters. If that doesn't demonstrate from 89 now to at least 300 and possibly 400, if that doesn't demonstrate commitment to breaking the back of crime, what does? Madam President, this is not a pipe dream. These are little steps, obvious steps, administrative steps, that the facts support. An administrative step reduced by 80%, 82%. And there will be a greater reduction because we have not yet finished. The time for the presentation of a VBI from charge to the presentation. Facts. An administrative step, Madam President, with positive results. An administrative step, swift justice, resulted in more matters being regularly brought on, routinely brought on for trial, Madam President, and within the defined, for this particular graph, period, a 61% conviction rate. An administrative step, Madam President, that enables matters to be prepared properly, better prepared. Why? Because the stakeholders are talking to each other. They're collaborating and cooperating, making sure that witnesses are there, making sure the investigating detective is there, making sure the evidence is there. Now, we may think these are obvious things, but they were not happening. All that we did was put the stakeholders around the table to make sure that it happened. So all that I am saying, Madam President and Senators, if administrative steps result in these successes, can you imagine what the administrative steps taken to support 10 judges sitting at the same time will result in?
Yes.
I am looking forward, Madam President, this time next year to produce the graph of how many trials were had in our courts.
Yes.
And I pray God it will be more than 300. I'm looking forward to producing statistics to show that because we were moving matters more effectively through the system within 12 months, nobody been released on bail for murder.
That's right.
Nobody. The person died, and the particular court heard, nobody. The law says you can't get bail for murder, you know, Madam President. You know why people are getting bail for murder? Because they say that it is their, and rightly so, it is their constitutional right to be tried within a reasonable period of time. Well, Madam President and colleagues, members of the public, if 12 months with 10 people considering concurrently is not a reasonable period of time, I want some other country in the world to tell me what is.
Exactly.
Madam President, extraordinary times require extraordinary measures. If we are able to try 400 matters in a year, that would cut cases in the system by more than 50%. An aggressive approach would send a clear message that you cannot play the system in the Bahamas. Madam President, we are not alone in the belief that extraordinary measures can and do make a difference. In the United Kingdom, after the riots of 2011, extraordinary measures were put in place that resulted in 2,000 cases being tried with an 83% conviction rate. Now that's what I look forward to.
Yeah.
An 83% conviction rate, Madam President, extraordinary measures. Madam President, we invite the cooperation of judges and defense counsel. Justice delayed is justice denied. Double booking creates backlog. We are confident that sustained prosecution of serious matters within 12 months will send a clear message of our collective determination. That means all of us in here, Madam President, and all Bahamians, our collective determination to break the back of crime once and for all. And that was a quote from the Right Honorable Prime Minister, Madam President, the face on this thrust, coming from the very top, Madam President. Madam President, when I was involved in consultation, people asked me, Attorney General, do you think that the cancellation of swift justice caused the problem that we're in today? I believe that certainly the majority of the problems can be linked to the cancellation of swift justice. I use in support the fact of the increased matters coming on for trial since the reinstatement of swift justice, the increased conviction rate, 61%, and I use for support the reinstatement of swift justice and its enhancement, the 82% reduction in the time for VBI presentation from charge to presentation of the VBI. Today, the government is demonstrating what the Prime Minister called the government's unflinching commitment, I'm quoting, unflinching commitment to do whatever is necessary to reduce crime, the fall of crime, and guarantee law and order in our society. Now, Madam President and colleagues, so that it is clearly understood, I did say in the first instance, and I want to be clear, that we have a commitment to medium and long-term effect of our strategy as well. We believe that the re-implementation of swift justice will continue to result in more cases coming on for trial, that 300 or 400, as matters that are prepared for trial in conjunction, will continue to be prepared for trial in conjunction with all of the relevant parties. And we also believe that the upward tick in conviction rate will continue. We would like to see this 74-day success reduced to 30 days, Madam President. From charge to presentation of a VBI, we would like to see it reduced to 30 days. And we believe it can be done, Madam President. Judges sit at all times, ready to hear matters. Magistrates are sitting, ready to hear matters. Prosecutors are ready to present matters. So if we are preparing our files properly, as we are doing, the magistrates are sitting ready to hear a matter, why can't we present the DBI within 30 days after the person is charged? That's what we're headed for.
Yes.
And that's why we believe that these extraordinary measures will be successful. Achieving this timeline will minimize the need for backup trials. At the moment when a matter is set down, sometimes there are 3 or 4 backup matters. If a matter comes on, those backup matters go where? Back to someplace in the back of the line. Backlog. As we maximize matters coming on for trial, because they've been properly prepared and all the stakeholders are working together, we minimize backlog and backup trials. And we believe that by the end of this year, people will routinely begin to feel the effect of swift justice, combined with, of course, the extraordinary measures that are being implemented, the 10 judges sitting at the same time. In the medium term, Madam President, can you imagine the impact of now, let's fast forward 2 years. We're using integrated justice, the calendaring system. So the whole calendar, the backlog in the calendar, the Court of Appeal, the Supreme Court, the magistrates, all in the system now. In the beginning, it's going to be taking pains. It's going to be successful because hopefully we will all collaborate and cooperate. But now it's all in the system. Madam President, you know what a difference that's going to make? We got to begin to work hard now, because the Bahamian people deserve it. Accused persons deserve it, a reasonable period in a reasonable period of time. Victims have rights. They want to bring resolution to these matters. When your loved one has been attacked, viciously attacked, you want that resolved in 12 months at least, not 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years down the road. A loved one is dead. You buried the person, but until you have seen the matter through trial, you can't.
Deal. Lay for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust consumes, where thieves do not break in and steal. Where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. The eye is the lamp of the body. So if your eye is sound, your whole body will be full of light. If your eye is not sound, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light in you is darkness, how great is the darkness? No one can serve 2 masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon at the same time. Therefore, I tell you, do not be anxious about your life, what you shall eat, or what you shall drink, or about your body, what you shall put on. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothing? Look at the birds of the air. They neither sow nor reap nor gather in the barns, yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not of much more value than they? But which of you, by being anxious, can add 1 cubit to a span of life? Why are you anxious about clothing? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. Yet I tell you, even Solomon in all his glory was arrayed like one of these. God so clothed the grass of the field, which today is alive, and tomorrow is thrown into the oven. How much more will he clothe you, O men of little faith? Therefore, be not anxious about tomorrow, for tomorrow will be anxious for itself. Let the day's own trouble be sufficient for the day. The word of the Lord. Let us say the litany of thanksgiving. And your response will be, thank you, Lord. Let us give thanks to God our Father for all his gifts so freely bestowed upon us, for the beauty and wonder of creation. We thank you, Lord, for all that is gracious in the lives of men and women, revealing the image of Christ. We thank you, Lord, for our daily food, for our homes and families and friends. We thank you, Lord, for minds to think and hearts to love. We thank you, Lord, for health, strength, and skill to work, for leisure to rest and play. We thank you, Lord, for those who are brave and courageous, patient in suffering, and faithful in adversity. We thank you, Lord, for all who pursue peace, justice, righteousness, and truth. We thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord, especially as we move closer to the celebration of our 40th year as a sovereign and independent state. Thank you for all those who have gone before, those present, those who have been involved in bringing these realities into being. We thank you, Lord. Above all, we thank you for the great mercies and promises given to us in Christ Jesus our Lord. To him be praise and glory, with you, Father, and the Holy Spirit, forever and ever. Amen. Say a prayer for our Parliament. Most gracious God, we humbly beseech you for the Commonwealth, Bahamas in general, so especially for the High Court of Parliament, this time assembled. You will be pleased to direct and prosper their consultations to the advance of your glory and the good of our Bahamaland. Safety, honor, dignity, and welfare of all who dwell in our midst. All things may be ordered and settled by their endeavors upon the best and surest foundations. Peace and happiness, truth and justice may be established among all generations. These are all other necessities for them, for us, and your whole people. We beg in the name of Jesus Christ, our most blessed Lord and Savior. Amen. Blessed God Almighty, be with you as you discuss the business of our country, our well-being. Pray that crime against persons, crime against properties, we will learn to live together in unity, love, and concord this time and forevermore. Amen. God bless your deliberations. Thank you.
As usual, we thank our chaplain for his thoughtful prayer, and if you would just oblige me, it certainly has moved me to ask that we offer just a moment of silence for those persons who sat in this chamber and who would have fought valiantly to bring about the experience that we're about to have of our 40th anniversary, a celebration of our 40th anniversary of independence. And I ask for a moment of silence in their memory and in their honor. Thank you very much. At our rising last evening, we were debating, receiving contributions from members on a bill for an act for the appropriation of diverse sums of money for and towards the defraying the expenses of the government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas on revenue account for the financial year commencing 1st July 2013 and ending 30th of June 2014. As many. Just before the Honorable Senator Bazard commences her contribution, I'd like to recognize that we do have with us this morning the Vice Chancellor, the University of Buckingham, happens to be the university which Senator Bazard attended. And so I'm sure this presentation, without any due pressure, is one that is of particular significance to her. Senator Bazard. Sure. Yes. Yes, the chair recognizes Senator Thompson.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I also want to welcome the Vice Chancellor to the Senate. I did want to just say something because I also am an alum of the University of Buckingham, and to say how I think important the University of Buckingham is for the Bahamas, as there are many lawyers, including those who are in this very chamber and in the House of Assembly, who have graduated and attended the University of Buckingham. It was an important part of my life. It has contributed to where I am today. I'm proud to say that I'm one of those Bahamians who was able to attain a first-class pass at the University of Buckingham. So welcome, sir.
Thank you, Senator Thompson. The chair recognizes Senator Times. Madam President, I would like to say that I too am a graduate of the University of Buckingham, and it was also it was a culture shock for me when I went to University of Buckingham, because I attended the University of Miami in Florida, so it was quite a different atmosphere for me, and I I realized that you have to be able to adjust to your surroundings. So it was I had ups and downs with the weather. That was my problem. I couldn't really adjust to the weather because I'm a sunshine girl. So, but that was the only downfall for my experience there. So thank you for being here in the Bahamas, and I'm sure that many more Bahamians will be interested in attending your institution. Senator Tynes, and now the chair recognizes Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Madam President. Well wishes have been extended by other senators with respect to Father's Day, but I wish to also extend a belated Happy Father's Day to all fathers in the Bahamas, and also to extend, in his absence, special congratulations to Senator the Honorable Greg Burrows for being honored with the Fabulous 40 for his role as father, not only in the lives of his biological children, but in the lives of numerous children that have passed through his Freedom Farm program, hundreds of them. In fact, his absence here is due to his traveling with those children to international competition. I also wish to congratulate him and the team of Bishop Neil Ellis in the Mount Tabor Gospel Baptist Church for envisioning and spearheading such an event that coincides with the generational exchange of the baton in this country's 40-year anniversary. Madam President, you have already warmly welcomed our Vice Chancellor, Dr. Terence Keeley, and other alumni in the chamber have also recognized him, and we're glad to see him here. Professor Keeley, Vice Chancellor Keeley, is a professor of clinical biochemistry and a former lecturer at the University of Cambridge, and also studied at the University of Oxford. So we have a well-lettered man in our midst this morning, and we're so happy to have you in our country, and we hope you have a wonderful visit and enjoy your stay here. Madam President, now on to the business of the day. Against the backdrop of this being a pivotal budget in the history of our small nation, and one that secures the future for all Bahamians, and I wish to emphasize all Bahamians. The Right Honorable Member, our Prime Minister, Perry Christie, has provided a multi-pronged approach against the economic onslaught felt by so many by reining in recurrent expenditure to the tune of $83 million and making room for the growth of recurrent revenue. In fact, it is reported that recurrent expenditure this year is fully $162 million lower than the budget forecast. We're not talking pennies here. We're talking serious savings in dollars. The benefits of this disciplined decrease in spending is an achievement not to be downplayed. One is quite aware of how one feels when a mortgage is retired. The funds used for payment of that bill can now be used for savings for a rainy day or some other venture that benefits the person and/or his family. It is important to note that while reduction in spending has affected areas such as public service, tourism, finance, and the public hospital authorities, the armed forces, educational facilities such as the College of the Bahamas, BTVI and social service, youth, sports and culture, and urban development have avoided the cuts or trims because it has been and continues to be reaffirmed that these are areas that this government is committed to. However, in the midst of prudence and austerity, the light of compassion has shone through in the extension of stamp tax exemption granted to first-time homeowners for a further period of 5 years to 2018. The Family Island Development Encouragement Act has been extended for a further year. The Family Island Development Encouragement Act offers significant incentives for construction, such as permitting the duty-free importation of building materials for the construction of new buildings or the rehabilitation, remodeling, or extension of existing residential and commercial buildings. Quite a boost for our Family Islanders. The Passenger Tax Act has been amended so that children under the age of 12 are given the $300 exemption on return to the Bahamas effective July 1, 2013. And you know that is just before going back to school. So again, some money back into the pockets of Bahamians. The wisdom of the government in creating and promoting the real property tax amnesty must be commended. We know that there have been outstanding real property taxes, but by granting amnesty, there has been the realization of $9.1 million over a 3-month period while increasing the tax base. It is an exercise in compassion, wisdom, and diligence. In fact, this is not the first time that a PLP-led government has offered relief for homeowners or would-be homeowners. In the 2005-2006 budget communication, the Honorable Cynthia Pratt noted that the exemption on owner-occupied properties was increased from $100,000 to $250,000. However, to avail of this concession, homeowners had to pay arrears or enter into satisfactory arrangement with the Real Property Tax Office. Economic experts have noted that the best way that jobs are created is through the private sector and the enabling role of the government in providing an environment conducive to business growth. The role this government has taken is set to set the climate for such growth. Do you realize, Madam President, that there are few, and the opposition politicians make up the majority, who are calling us the sick man in the Caribbean? They are trying to put the state of the economy in ICU when others are indicating that the plans contained in the budget communication should prevent the Bahamas' debt metrics from spiraling out of control. Yes, they who had the country's economy in a wheelchair with no attendant holding onto the handles of the brakeless chair as it raced down slippery paths, and now, that's what they said, are now being told that I think the Bahamas is assuming a pretty steady recovery in revenues based on the reform package they have. Now, debt metrics are the principal measurements used to measure the country's debts. For example, one metric or measurement might be the ratio of its total debt to its gross domestic product. The Christie administration inherited a mess and is doing its best to put things right. It may not be to everyone's liking, and no government will ever get 100% consensus, but consider the alternative of a country on a spending spree. One should liken it to a tenant who is contracting for the use of rental space. If the tenant before him had, for example, a low BEC billing, the deposit for the new tenant would be less than if the tenant before him had incurred recklessly high usage of electricity. Then the deposit would definitely be higher. And we have come behind the tenant who had a recklessly high electricity bill. As we have heard in that other place, and I am sure as we will hear in this place, there will be the cry of $100 billion borrowing. I believe the side opposite is of the view that if they say it often enough, they will cause the Bahamian people to believe that this government has gone on a spending spree. Not true. What they have failed to tell the Bahamian people, and to be honest with the Bahamian people with, is this. The borrowings were to pay their bills, and I dare anyone on the other side opposite to challenge this. That is a fact. In fact, former Prime Minister, the Right Honorable Hubert Ingraham, noted in a speech, in fact, the final speech before the 2012 general elections, given on the 5th of May, 2012. And he said, I quote, "Paving a road does not take a very long time. If that is all we had to do, the roads would have been paved earlier. But it was the work under the road that you can't see that took most of the time. We found utility wires all jumbled up and at risk of potentially causing fires and serious electrical and other problems. You know how sometimes all the wires get jumbled up in the back of your TV or the computer. You know how frustrating it is to untangle all those wires. Well, the Honorable Member for Cat Island and San Salvador, our Deputy Prime Minister, will tell you that they still had to redig and repave because a number of the pipes had sprung leaks. The Right Honorable Member, the Prime Minister, will tell you that he has found not utility wires, but an overwhelming debt burden standing at a staggering $1.5 billion, and the growth of capital expenditure by 72%. Not with the potential to cause physical fires, but with the ability to drown a nation. Not serious electrical and other problems, but having to use 1 out of every $4 in revenue collection to pay not the public debt, but the interest on the public debt. And you know how frustrating and painstaking it is to have to untangle all those wires, inclusive of the downgrading by Moody's and the comments of Standard & Poor's and others. As the claim was made that good water is essential for health and nutrition, good fiscal responsibility and management is essential for the health of a nation and the growth of its people. On Monday, the 18th of June, 2013, the former United States Secretary of State, Mrs. Hillary Clinton, in her address to the Economic Club of Grand Rapids, noted 3 very important things from her acceptance of this position, i.e. Secretary of State, after she and President Barack Obama came out of a very heated race for the Democratic nomination for the presidency. And the 3 points are as follows. 1, you can't let personal competition get in the way of building your country and solving these problems that people had debated during the election. 2, good decisions are based on evidence, not ideology. Too often, our public debates seem to take place in what I like to call evidence-free zones. The standard operating procedure in politics is don't let the facts get in the way of emotion or the ideology or the political advantage. Well, let me repeat the facts and make this place an evidence-filled, not an evidence-free zone. A, when you look at this budget, there is reduced borrowing in the sum of $147 million. There is reduced recurrent expenditure by $83 million. Fact. There is a reduction of capital expenditure by $106 million. And there is a $123 million increase over this year's projected revenue. Lastly, Hillary Clinton's 3rd point was follow the trend lines, not just the headlines. When we look at what is proposed in this budget, it is visionary, and it is propelling the country to another level, moving towards a balanced budget. Now, much has been said about the proposed festival, which some have viewed as embracing other countries' cultures or a replay of Bombay summer. I am of the opinion that this visionary move is to link the arts with entrepreneurship. For so long, our artists and artisans have been scraping by or sharing their greatness and artistic ability free of charge or with minimum financial success. This festival, by whatever name it is called, is turning music and entertainment into a business on a national scale, and I dare say an international scale. You've heard Senator Bostwick talk about an international drumming coming to the Bahamas. And this is being done so that our artists and entertainers can also achieve commercial success. The proposed festival will turn the rake and scrape sounds and the pulsation of goat skin drums and fringe crepe costumes into a business that lasts outside of the Christmas and New Year Junkanoo parades. I look forward to hearing the masterful performances of a Fred Ferguson on guitar, the exquisite works of an Imogen Joaquin clay-fired mask, and the thousands of other artisans and artists that inhabit this beautiful country. We look forward to the promotion of this unique island nation and its cultural history and expressions. I welcome it. I now turn my attention to the Ministry of Transport and Aviation. The Honorable Glenys Hanna Martin, Minister of Transport, and Mrs. Hope Strawn, Minister of State for Transport, have taken the bull by the horns and have set about several initiatives that speak to the standards, new revenue streams, training and human resource development, infrastructural improvement, and new infrastructural initiatives. I have the pleasure of assisting this ministry in some of these initiatives in the capacity of chairman of the Port Authority. This ministry is especially important to the tourism sector as it has oversight of the entry gates into this country by air and by sea. For years now, the port at Prince George Wharf has been allowed to fall into a state of disrepair. And I brought some photos showing how the entry to the Bahamas by cruise ship is viewed by our visitors. This is the Welcome Center. This is the rusting of the building. This is what we found. These are the bollards holding the cruise ships. Yes.
Let's see this way.
This.
We found them like that in 202. Again.
These are the sidewalks. This.
Again. Wow.
Sidewalks are broken. The building housing the Welcome Center is falling apart. I noted in that other place, there were expressions that the other side would not put up posters of crime statistics because they cared about tourism. Tourism was too important. When I listened to that, I said it must be tongue-in-cheek. Because if one were to take a walk about that port, one would come to the conclusion that tourism could not have been that important if the first view that your cruise passengers see are those conditions existing at the port. First impressions are lasting impressions, Madam President. However, we will not dwell on the negative. We will fix it. As the Minister noted, efforts are continuously underway to upgrade and maintain the Prince George dock, inclusive of surface repairs, causeway repairs, and the repair and a replacement of the bollards. This government is showing through action, not speech, that tourism is indeed important to this nation and to this government and to the leader steering the ship of state at this time in our history and development as a nation. The Port Authority Board understands that we are in partnership with the participants in the water sports industry, the mailboat services, and the foreign charter party participants, among others, in the industry. We have met with the latter two, i.e. the leaders in the mailboat industry and the foreign charter party, and have listened to their concerns and will continue to partner with them to make positive changes in the industry and to increase revenue through perhaps an automated collection of fees. In fact, those who are operating the foreign charter parties coming outside of the country into the Bahamas have indicated to us that this is the first time they've come before a board to even be asked about their concerns. Dead serious. As for the water sports industry, as noted by the Minister, the board has taken a no-tolerance policy in this area, given the incidents that have happened in the past and our commitment to ensuring safety for citizens and tourists alike. A meeting with those stakeholders is to be held in short order. When one looks at the leadership of the Ministry of Transport and Aviation, one cannot overlook the fact that the Minister, the Junior Minister, the Minister of State, and the Permanent Secretary are all women. Women lead this ministry. And I've had the pleasure to attend the Parl-Americas Summit, which showcased women in parliamentary leadership. The conference was held in Paramaribo, Suriname, and my attendance at the same was sponsored by the Parl-Americas Group. I don't want anyone to go out and say they spent money sending me over. The Parl-Americas Group sponsored my attendance at this conference. And at this meeting, female parliamentarians from the Caribbean, Canada, South America, and men who supported them arrived at the following conclusions. They recommended encouraging Parl-Americas member states to support legislation that sets effective quotas for electing or appointing women to parliaments, and that establishes effective, transparent, and gradual processes toward parity, ensuring women obtain competitive spaces on election lists. States should take measures to have a critical mass of women in parliaments so that they are in a position to impact the decision-making processes of their countries. States should not rely on quotas alone, which are necessary but insufficient to achieve the stated goal, but should do so to facilitate gender parity in parliamentary representation. And we have heard our Attorney General say from time to time, and she has compared it to an eagle. An eagle has two wings, and in this country, those two wings are representative of men and women. And we will not be able to make this country the country that it needs to be unless we take a hold of both resources. And I look forward to when more women are in this line of business doing the people's work. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Honorable Fred Mitchell, who is also an alum of the University of Buckingham, has espoused his ministry's position with respect to immigration reforms. The creation of a national training agency now provides the structure to prepare Bahamians to equip themselves so that the oft-used phrase, Bahamians are not qualified, can now find itself in the dust of Bahamian history where it truly belongs. It is a proactive move, it is a progressive move, and it is a move that this government looks to make and keep its citizens employable and ready for future job opportunities. Further, through partnership with the Caribbean Development Bank, the allocation to education, and in particular special education, and the transformation of the College of the Bahamas to the University of the Bahamas, the soon-to-be School of Agriculture and Marine Sciences in North Andros, all point to the government's commitment to the education and specialized education of its citizens. I wish to emphasize that the mission statement of the Special Education Unit of the Ministry of Education reads as follows: committed to developing and implementing programs, providing services, and equal educational opportunities that would address the unique learning needs of all students, therefore giving every child a chance to maximize their potential. That mission statement has made gigantic steps towards reality by the actions of this government. The establishment of a School of Agriculture moves us a step closer to releasing our dependency on foreign food imports. Not only does it translate into employment, expertise in agricultural science, and a healthier food source, but it can also cause the savings of $700,000 on food imports per annum. Since 2004, North Andros High was able to provide a Nassau-based hotel and restaurant with fresh fruits and vegetables. College of the Bahamas' president, Dr. Betsy Bowes, has confirmed that North Andros could be the home of the agricultural side of the College of the Bahamas' Small Island Sustainability Program. This is not an illusion. This is going to be a reality. The provision of mini hospitals in South Eleuthera and Cat Island, the near completion of the mini hospital in the island of my parents' birth, Exuma, and the National Health Plan tells our fellow Bahamians that not only are the benefits of this budget plan limited to New Providence, but it extends itself across this archipelagic nation. The Bahamas, with its hundreds of islands strewn across nearly 100,000 square feet of water, provides this government with the challenge, miles of water, thank you, Honorable Senator, provides this government with a challenge not experienced by our Caribbean neighbors to have to replicate facilities in more than one place. But the task and the challenge has been accepted by this government, and they are up for the task. Legal practitioners and their clients are often frustrated by the availability of court dates. The promise of 20 new judges is welcome news. Senator Bannister noted that the Bahamian people don't know what it will cost them to have 20 more judges. I wish to respond that Bahamian people know what it will cost them if the backlog is not cleared up and accused persons are released on bail to reoffend again. It is also welcome news that work continues in the court damaged by the heavy rains a few months ago. Now, Madam President, one is quite aware that even if all of the above is successfully implemented and the ugly head of crime still looms high on the horizon, the efforts will be severely undermined. But this government has allocated $2 million for the purchase of police vehicles and to recruit 100 new police officers. The sums allocated to the Defense Force for more vessels, and again the recruitment of more officers, show that this government is serious about crime. You know, I listened to the leader of the opposition in the other place, and he stated that crime is not a priority for this government, and that this government has not done enough. My only response is that he must not have been listening. I echo the sentiments of former Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of National Security, Mrs. Cynthia Pratt, at the 2009 PLP National Convention, and much has been said about the fact that crime has been politicized. In fact, the editorial of the Tribune today reads as follows. Although our crime problem has taken years in the making, Prime Minister Christie campaigned in the 2012 general elections on the promise that if given the government, his party would produce a crime-free country. How erroneous. And you know, that is why you have to go back to the Charter for Governance. It is clear in the Charter for Governance what has been set out as a vision and a goal for national security. And it said that the Progressive Liberal Party is committed to introducing a sustainable national crime agenda to reduce and control crime throughout our country. It also spoke to engaging all stakeholders. This isn't something new. It's there, it's printed. And it says, this, due to the level and extent that crime has been allowed to flourish, the PLP accepts that a holistic approach that engages all stakeholders must be adopted in the fight against crime. This must involve government, its law enforcement agencies, the church, the schools, the business community, and society in large. In essence, the entire society must know and play its role. In fact, there's also an article outlining Urban Renewal 2.0 and Cynthia Mother Pratt, also in the papers this morning, and I don't know if this is parliamentary language, but it says that Mother Pratt said, get up off your rump and do something, okay? And she spoke to the fact that this work is not an easy job, it's not a pleasant job sometimes, but at the same time, we want results for our country. This is our country, and whatever we can do, I'm calling all and sundry. Now, if you don't fit in all and sundry in the Bahamian vernacular, that means everybody. All and sundry, whatever you can do to help, come. Don't mind the naysayers and those who are talking. We're concerned about results. This is our country, and if we all can't fight for our country, then we are all going down together. And that has been the mindset of this government. The challenge to us and the response has been a mature and comprehensive response. And I hasten to add that not only does crime and the problems of crime demand a mature and comprehensive response, but a combined zeal and effort of every citizen from Yamakra in the east to Kalani in the west. As a founding board member of the LEAD Institute headed by Mr. Troy Clark, individual citizens have reached out to young men who have been suspended or expelled from school and began a program known as the Eagle Initiative. The children are placed in a program that assists them in the basic subjects of math, English, and literature, and provides a structure, counseling, and discipline. And the program must also be bought in by the parents of these youngsters. There has been more than an 85% success rate, and it has benefited from government assistance, inclusive of the technical expertise and attendance, I think, even up to last week, by our own Senator, the Honorable Keith Bell. Further, this program assists inmates who are released from prison and tries to integrate them back into society by providing jobs and counseling for them. Persons like Audley Aratis, who is also a board member of LEAD, a contractor by profession, provides job for these men when others would turn them away owing to their criminal records. There's also the spiritual advice and leadership and governance by Pastor Miles Monroe of Bahamas Faith Ministries, and Mr. Eric Fox and Mr. Andre Chappelle also act as counselors to persons enrolled in the Institute. So the idea of a village coming together to raise up young men who may have made the wrong choices in the past shows how successful we can be as a nation when we work together, providing leadership opportunities building esteem, exploring the ability of these men in an environment of discipline. In conclusion, Madam President, as the black triangle in our flag represents the vigor and force of united people, and its pointing towards the body of the flag represents the enterprise and determination of the Bahamian people to develop and possess the rich resources of sun and sea, so does this budget point us in the right direction. It is a growth-oriented budget. The employment numbers have already declined from 14.7% to 14%. In 2011, this figure stood at an astronomical 15.9%. In an article, it is noted that a prudent government must balance spending and revenue collection in a way that assures the sustainability of its debts. To do otherwise leads to instability and slow growth. It courts default and catastrophe. Just as a household or business cannot indefinitely increase its debt relative to its income without becoming insolvent, neither can a government. There is no permanent option of public spending without raising commensurate revenue. Now, there has been much commentary regarding the increase in business license taxes. This must always be discussed in tandem with the efforts to reduce electricity costs, inclusive of the bill that we are debating in this session, eliminating the excise tax on fuel used by BEC, which should result in a 6% reduction in costs to the Bahamian consumers. Contrary to the prediction of the Leader of Her Majesty's loyal opposition, that the grave of this government will not be covered with dust but concrete, we beg to differ. This budget portrays a government that is a good, prudent steward of the people's business. History will show that just like the doubters at the tomb of Lazarus, even though dead for 4 days, this government is calling forth the economy left by the admission of the Leader of the opposition in a wheelchair, a paraplegic, not ambulatory, with more than 100% of a GFS deficit. No wonder why the economy, once a robust man under the 2002-2007 PLP government, was once again found under the F&M-led government to be sick and anemic. However, as the servants of the people, we have come to tell the layman, left with no one to put him in the pool of Bethesda, to rise up and walk. Madam President, I support this budget, and I pray God's continued blessing on this government and this country. And with that, I yield the floor.
Thank you, Honorable Member. As many. The Chair recognizes the Vice President, Senator the Honorable Joseph Curry.
That's another fellow.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Madam President and colleagues, as I rise to make my contribution to the Appropriations Bill 2013-2014, I am minded to reflect on why I believe the Bahamian people again put their trust in the Right Honorable Perry Gladstone Christie and his Progressive Liberal Party in May 2012 and elected a new government. I am minded to believe that they wanted to change the course on which the country was on. I am minded to believe that they wanted a more caring and sensitive government who believed in them. I'm minded to believe that they remembered the good times they had between 2002 and 2007 under a Christie-led government, and wanted to return to sound, prudent, and disciplined fiscal management with a strong economy and multiple job opportunities. Madam President, I'm minded to believe that Bahamians elected the PLP back to office after a short 5-year period to get the country out of the economic despair and downward spiral it was on, and to create hope and new opportunities for all Bahamians. Madam President, the Right Honorable Prime Minister has heard the cries of the Bahamian people, and he has felt their pain. This budget begins the process of putting us on the road to recovery. We, unfortunately, have been there before. Back in 2002, after 10 years of FNM governance. But there is good news. There is good news, colleagues. The good news is that this same Prime Minister and Minister of Finance was at the helm in 2002 and is at the helm now. And he knows what it takes to put us back on track. He had a plan then that worked and created over 22,000 jobs during that period, and saw unemployment drop to an irreducible level of 7.6% in 2006. He had a plan then. He has a plan now. Madam President, this 2013-2014 budget is but the first step towards modest growth in a still very difficult domestic and international economy, and it points us in the right direction. To affirm this, shortly after the budget communique by the Prime Minister and Minister of Finance on the 29th of May, in an interview with the Tribune Business, which appeared on the 31st of May 2013 edition, Mr. Edward Al-Husseini, an analyst from the international rating agency Moody's, gave this budget a positive review. He is quoted as saying this: "This budget hits a lot of the right notes." His word. Further, he stated, in referring to the Christie administration and this year's budget plans, and I quote, "In a nutshell, I think they're making a lot of the right moves, particularly on the revenue side." Madam President, this is not a quick fix budget, but a well thought out, widely consulted upon, and strategically planned budget. This budget has the government making some tough but prudent and sound fiscal decisions, both on the expenditure side and on the revenue side. I must hasten to add that this is the first PLP budget in the new administration, which has been planned from conception to presentation by the Right Honorable Perry Gladstone Christie, Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, the Honorable Michael Alcides, Minister of State for Finance, the Cabinet of the Government of the Bahamas, and the hard-working public officials in the Ministry of Finance, led by new Financial Secretary, Mr. John Rowe. I pause, Madam President, to pay respects to the late Ehud Cunningham, the former Financial Secretary, who recently passed away, but who gave so much in the furtherance of this country, particularly in the area of public finance. Madam President, before I go into more details on this budget, I wish to review briefly the economic and fiscal performance of this government over the last year and the outlook for the next 2 years. It has been 1 year since the Progressive Liberal Party was elected to office. The Prime Minister and his team of new generation leaders, coupled with experienced leadership, has done well, I believe, and the country is moving in the right direction. The Department of Statistics, in its labor force survey for the 6-month period ending November 2012, advised that the jobless rate fell to 14%, from 14.7%, with 1,925 persons entering the job market following a 1.2% contraction for the previous 6 months. What that means? In the first 6 months of the PLP coming to office, just getting out the gate, because of either the confidence, the performance, or the hard work. I believe it's all three. 1,900 jobs have been created in the first 6 months of our administration. But I want you to listen to this from me, colleagues. What is even more encouraging from this survey is that discouraged workers, these are the men and women who are no longer looking for jobs. Discouraged workers declined by 8% over that period. What does that mean? What that means in real terms is that people are once again optimistic about job prospects in this Bahamas, and they're now looking for a job. That's what that means. Hopelessness and despair has been replaced by hope and optimism within 1 year. That is what this government has done. Help and hope is what they elected the PLP to bring for them, and is on its way. Madam President, I'm also encouraged by the projected economic growth of the Bahamian economy as forecast by the IMF in the April 2013 World Economic Outlook. The growth of the economy for 2012 was 1.8%. Before then, it was negative growth. It is now projected to grow by 2.7% in 2013 and adjusted to 2.5% in 2014 based on the commitments and the obligations which we propose to address over the next 12 months. These are positive signs, which means that the country and the economy are trending in the right direction. Madam President, I want to refer to comments made by the Honorable Leader of Opposition Business in the Senate yesterday with respect to the dangerously low foreign reserves of which the government is well aware and is monitoring as part of its overall economic plan. However, the whole story was not told. With economics, one cannot look at any one statistic in isolation. One must look at corresponding figures and statistics to get a true picture of what is happening in the economy. Hear this now. If foreign reserves are growing and debt is growing at an even faster rate, then debt servicing, which is paid in foreign currency, must not be receiving the requisite attention. You cannot have both. That leads me to the repeated comments about the Christie administration borrowing $1 billion in 1 year. Madam President, any responsible government would want to ensure that the government honors its fiscal commitments and obligations, whether incurred or inherited. Either you pay your bills or you go to business. It's that simple. The PLP is a responsible government who believes in honoring its commitments. The facts are that the government, on coming to office, discovered considerable debt that was outstanding and that was due, which needed to be honored immediately. They don't like to hear you say that. To not honor the debt had some dire consequences for the economy and our international standing. could have resulted in a negative image for the government of the Bahamas in the eyes of the international financial community, and could have had dramatic implications for our way of life as a people as we now know it. The credit rating of the country would have been under threat. Our ability to borrow on the international market would have been compromised. The Bahamas as a place to do business and to invest would have been less attractive. And our Bahamian dollar, which we all pride so much, would have come under tremendous pressure as it relates to the parity to the US dollar. Madam President and colleagues, the FNM created the debt. The PLP will honor the debt. That is what responsible governments do. Madam President, again I state that we cannot look at any one issue in discussing the state of our economy and devising a formula to get back on track. This government is taking a holistic approach to the recovery of the Bahamian economy. And the Prime Minister and Minister of Finance and his Minister of State for Finance need to be highly commended. Madam President, I now turn my attention to the budget in more detail. In his budget communique to the House of Assembly on the 29th of May, the Right Honorable Prime Minister and Minister of Finance stated this: My government is acting decisively to improve the health of the public finances and to pull us out of the debilitating public debt spiral that we inherited upon coming into office. Further, he stated that we must of necessity be more cost efficient in our operations and aggressively seek to enhance revenue performance. Madam President, the PLP's economic and fiscal strategy, which worked in 2002 when we came to office back then, I'm convinced will work in 2013. It is a strategy which controls public expenditure, consolidates spending to realize savings, while increasing revenue through creative and new measures. It is a strategy which stimulates the economy, attracts foreign direct investment, while expanding domestic investment to create sustainable jobs. Jobs for Bahamians, while broadening the economic base. We cannot continue to spend and borrow. At some point, we must put the brakes on and halt the hemorrhaging in our public finance. This budget does just that. Madam President, I was somewhat startled when I heard the comments, which perhaps bears the most accurate picture of what is happening and what this government inherited. In this communication to the House of Assembly, the Prime Minister and Minister of Finance states that almost 1 out of every $4 in revenue collected by the government must be allocated to pay the interest on the public debt and to cover debt repayment. We will do the responsible thing. We'll honor our commitments. Madam President, what's in it for me? I believe that every Bahamian is asking that question. What's in it for me? What's in this budget that will ease their burden and bring relief? What is in this budget that will return them to the quality of life that they had become accustomed to? What is in this budget which will create sustainable job opportunities for them? Even in meeting our financial commitments, we have an obligation to bring relief. We have an obligation to bring hope. We have an obligation to create opportunities. This budget is the budget of a caring government. It is a human budget of a socially and economically conscious government. It is a good budget, and time will bear this out. Madam President, there is much in this budget for the Bahamian people, which they'll be able to touch, they'll be able to feel, and they'll be able to see in this fiscal period, not 5 years down the road, in this 1 year period. However, I will only highlight those which I think will directly and immediately impact on the lives of ordinary Bahamians throughout this Commonwealth. $10 million for urban renewal and small home repairs. In times of difficulty, most of us do not address home repairs because they are more pressing basic human needs like food and shelter and clothing. For the small man and woman, this budget speaks to this. $30 million for special education and the transition of the College of the Bahamas to university status. You know, the college must be smiling. Those with special needs in education will receive it, as this government is making the single largest financial commitment to special education through this caring Prime Minister. The commitment to the realization of the University of the Bahamas is real. The commitment is real, as reflected in this budget. $5 million of its own resources for the construction of primary and secondary schools in the islands of Inagua, San Salvador, in Gregorytown in Lutra, and in Low Sound in Andros. You know, Madam President and colleagues, the PLP was criticized heavily by the former administration for not building a single school during our last term in office. That's their words. That's still up for debate, in my humble opinion. However, in this budget, from its own resources, $5 million will be used to construct much-needed schools in the Family Island. I move on to the $4 million for a new school of agriculture and marine sciences in North Andros. At long last, after 40 years of independence, a generation, a true and real commitment to agriculture is being made in this budget. No more lip service. The right island has been selected with arable and vast acreage of land. We have, through this new school, for the first time, a real commitment towards food security and an investment in agriculture and marine technology to feed ourselves. I'm told the opportunity to reduce our food imports by a reported 20%, and an even greater push towards self-reliance. This government believes in Bahamians and their ability and their capacity to get this done. $10 million for construction of multi-purpose sporting facilities in the Family Island. Our successes in all spheres of sport is renowned, whether it be in boxing, baseball, track and field, beach soccer, basketball, tennis, judo, or swimming. We have not reached our full potential, I believe, as a young nation in athletics, as most of the sporting successes that we have realized have come out of the islands of New Providence and Grand Bahama. This is because that is where most of the investment in the sporting infrastructure was made over the many years. This government believes that the commitment to the Family Islands and the creation of sporting facilities will realize new world-class athletes from throughout our chain of islands. The world has put on notice. Even greater things are to come. $1 million for the installation of greenhouses for gardening purposes at the prison, in schools and special education facilities, at the William A. Pratt and Simpson Penn Centers, at seniors and children's homes throughout the country, as well as in urban renewal communities as a means of providing employment and a source of marketable produce. Madam President, the government has also foreshadowed the establishment of a new national training agency and is reviewing all aspects of the National Health Insurance Program with a clear commitment to its establishment during this term. I support both initiatives and applaud the government. If we are to remain relevant and on the cutting edge of technology and efficiency in production and services, then the training agency is a must. If we are to invest in the health and well-being of our people and to have a healthy workforce and a pool for domestic and foreign investors to draw from, then the National Health Insurance Program is a must. This government is committed to both. Madam President, there's also a commitment in the budget to the construction of 2 mini hospitals in South Eleuthera and in Cat Island. I know that the people in Eleuthera and Cat Island are smiling this morning. We have to take care of all of our people and bring to them the essentials for a good quality of life. Madam President, we also heard yesterday in the Senate, Honorable Senator Alex Storr speak to the $60 million loan between the Bahamas Mortgage Corporation, National Insurance Board, the Ministry of Finance, and the Ministry of Environment and Housing for the housing program of the government during this term. The first tranche of $10 million is expected to be released during this fiscal period, and construction will commence shortly on the first 120 homes. Much needed homes for Bahamian families. Our commitment on housing is not new. You will recall that during our last term in office, we constructed over 1,300 homes in 5 years. We did it before, and we'll do it again. Madam President, this is a caring budget from a caring Prime Minister and government during difficult times. Madam President, I listened with interest to those on the side opposite when they criticized the government for cuts in certain line items and heads. I'm wondering if they truly understand the budget process. How can you, in one breath, criticize the government for fiscal prudence and discipline through budget cuts, and at the same time criticize the government for high deficit? How can you criticize the government for introducing revenue measures to increase funding for much-needed government programs and government servicing, and at the same time say that you're taxing too much? Which one is it? You can't have both. You cannot have both. Madam President, the fiscal policies of the two governments are fundamentally different. And that is why I believe the Bahamian people place their trust in the Right Honorable Perry Gladstone Christie to lead them at this time. The F&M government tax, borrow, and spend. The PLP government controls spending, increases revenues, and enhances the quality of life. That's the difference between the two governments. The difference is responsible, prudent, and informed fiscal management. That's what the PLP represents. Each time the PLP criticizes the economic and fiscal policies of the former FNM government, the response is the same. The response is that the country was in an economic recession. There was 9/11, or there was the Gulf War. When the PLP government is criticized for its economic and fiscal policies, we don't listen to the naysayers. We get to work. We get it done. We fix it. We turn it around. We don't complain about what needs to be what needs to be done. We don't make excuses. The Bahamian people elected the PLP to fix the economy. That's what they elected, the Bahamian people elected this government to do, fix the economy. And we, by this budget, are on the road to doing exactly that. Madam President, there are a number of new bills which are companion legislation to the Appropriations Bill of 2013, which are intended to enhance revenue, to stimulate economic activity, and to create jobs. We didn't spend too much time in debating some of these, but I'm going to touch on them in the words of the Minister of State for Finance. The Passenger Tax Act. This is intended to amend the legislation so that the departure tax is paid by all outgoing passengers. It's an equitable tax, and this is consistent with the industry. The Family Island Development Encouragement Act. An amendment to allow extensions to this act to be done by the order of the Minister, to further stimulate the Family Island economies and to create new job opportunities. City of Nassau revitalization. An amendment to allow extensions to this act to be done by the order of the Minister. The revitalization of the City of Nassau, the center, is critical, and much work is needed here. I agree with the Honorable Senator Boswick and what he has shared with the Senate yesterday, and what he has shared with the Honorable Odie Wilscombe, Minister of Tourism, and what could be done to enhance and revitalize the City of Nassau. It needs to be done. Excise Act. This act is now WTO compliant in structure, with the biggest change being the revision to the pre-2010 structure on vehicle duties. This is a revenue enhancement measure. The Tariff Act is also WTO compliant. The major change is the inclusion of alcohol in the schedule, which was formerly in the Stamp Act. This is the modernization and update of the tariff schedule. Real property tax. This amendment is made to make it mandatory for the mortgagee in the case of commercial properties to pay the property tax 90 days after the amendment comes into effect, in the absence of evidence of payment by the mortgagor. The Stamp Act. It eliminates duties on alcohol and imposes a stamp duty on the conversion of remittances and dividends and management fees in excess of $500,000 per annum. Business license. It introduces a progressive business license schedule and incorporates basic anti-avoidance provisions. Savings bank. This allows the Post Office Savings Bank to invest a larger portion of its reserves in government securities, up from 1/3 to half. Then there's the Insurance Act, the Bahamas Maritime Authority Act, the IRCA Act, the Clifton Heritage Authority Act, the Bridge Authority Act. All of these incorporate a provision to allow for the transfer, and this is important, it didn't happen before, the transfer of surplus resources which sat in their accounts, to allow that to be transferred to the consolidated fund and to be available to the government of the Bahamas for national development. Real property tax amnesty program. On the 1st of March 2013, the government initiated a new real property tax amnesty program. The purpose of this program is to allow property owners the opportunity to have property assessed without any penalty. Additionally, the program seeks to allow property owners to bring their accounts current, with opportunities available for significant savings. A win-win. According to the Minister of State for Finance in his budget contribution, the real property tax amnesty program has yielded $9.1 million in additional revenue over the 3-month period from March to May of 2013. This revenue we would not have seen. $9.1 million in 3 months. It's a good program, which is already yielding dividends for the Bahamian people. Public-private sector partnership. Madam President, as the Minister of Finance indicated in the budget communication, the country's infrastructure needs cannot all be provided by the state. This has to be recognized, and as a result, the government has long partnered with quasi-government agencies such as NIB and BEC in providing infrastructure, be it in government offices, clinics, or for family island generation. The Ministry of Finance is seeking to expand the range of available partners for national development to include the private sector and the types of projects for financing. In this regard, the ministry will be developing a framework for public-private partnership with a focus on investments in the area of education, health, and general administration, office rents. If executed efficiently, this could stimulate job creation and lead to lower operational costs for the government. Madam President, I direct my colleagues' attention to the 44 new revenue measures at the back of the budget communication. 44, and I think this is what the analyst from Moody's was talking about when he talked about, particularly on the revenue side. There are 44 new revenue measures as outlined on Annex C to the budget communique. Again, these are intended to generate new revenues, to stimulate the economy, and to reduce the cost of living while enhancing the standard of living and the quality of life for every Bahamian. Madam President, this budget provides hope and optimism for the future of our beloved Bahamas. And it is a compass to lead us towards economic recovery, reduced deficits, much needed job creation, and lower unemployment. We have a caring Prime Minister and a caring government. We heard the Prime Minister in his closing contribution on the budget speaking to new and expanded investments in the country, which will create thousands of new jobs. The new National Training Agency will be launched next week to train and retrain thousands of Bahamians in new job skills to prepare them for the opportunities ahead. There is tremendous hope and optimism in this country. Madam President, as we prepare to celebrate 40 years as an independent nation, we must move forward. We must move upward. We must move onward. But Madam President, we must move together. There must be specific and clearly defined areas in the life of this nation which transcends partisan politics. If we don't correct it, it will be to our despair. The nation is divided politically. And it's good to share a political view or to have a political side, but it was never come at the expense of the advancement of a nation. There are certain issues that I think we need to come closer together on. One is crime. I won't touch on this because I believe the Honorable Attorney General and the Honorable Minister of State in the Ministry of National Security have both clearly and in my view provided great detail in articulating the plans and the programs in their respective areas in this budget. I simply lend my support to their contribution and to say, in my view, that the Minister of National Security is moving in the right direction. Madam President, the other area that we must come closer together on, I believe, and this one is a bit more of a challenge, is in providing economic opportunities for our people. It can't be, in my view, that based on who's the government, the economy of the country goes this way or that way. There must be common ground, I believe, on certain basic principles of economics that doesn't affect who the government may be. The people cannot reasonably expect, based on who's the government, that the economy may rise or fall. There has to be a comfort level. That's one of the things that ought not to be the basis on which people elect governments. There must be a coming together of both sides and agreeing certain policies. We talk about our vision. I think the new generation new senator talks about 2020 as well. Perhaps we need to look to see how close or how far apart they are. And have a meeting of the minds. Well, you know, with me, I don't count those things. I look at who's going to benefit. Who's going to benefit? That's what's important. I am comforted by the strong show of support by the side opposite to the initiatives offered to combat crime and to arrest crime in this country. Let me share with you, colleagues, and I think most of you are lawyers in here. The criminal carries no political brief. In my view, I don't think the criminal is even concerned with the government when he sets out to commit a crime. Therefore, we should not hold any brief as well in joining forces to fight back and preserve what we hold as precious for ourselves and for future generations of Bahamians. Likewise, if we continue to pull and haul on the question of the economy and the budgets, it would not be in the best interests of nation building. We have to be always fiscally responsible in difficult and in good times. Good times is not a time to go spend crazy. Good time is equally important to exercise austere economic measures, because we don't know what's around the corner. We must join hands and work together to retool and to reshape our economy while providing opportunities for all Bahamians, not just for some. We will be judged by future generations on what we pass on to them. For our part, we want to be responsible and to pass on a goodly heritage in all spheres. But I believe we should do it together. Madam President, I support this bill. I did it before. We know what it takes to get back on track. And we are trending, Madam President, in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Senator Curry. As many. Chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Heather Hunt.
Madam President, I'm indeed grateful to God for yet another opportunity to stand in this chamber and participate in the administration of the business of our beloved country. And I truly feel privileged that I serve in this place at such a historic juncture in the life of the Bahamas, the year we commemorate 40 years as an independent nation. I also remain grateful to my leader, Dr. Hubert Minnis, who continues to repose the trust in me to serve as an opposition senator and as the Shadow Minister of Youth, Sports and Culture. Madam President, just for a short few minutes, I intend to say brief words on issues of national importance, with a particular emphasis on matters affecting youth, sports and culture. But prior to addressing the financial matters at hand, I feel compelled to take a few moments to give a few short reflections on the 40th anniversary and the ongoing celebrations. As the Shadow Minister for Youth, Sports and Culture, it is unfortunate that despite at least 2 requests, the opposition were not invited to participate in the planning of the celebrations or asked to provide input to the minister or committee on matters relating to the 40th anniversary celebration. But, Madam President, with the independence drawing so near, I do not seek to be overly critical, but I wish to state that it is disingenuous to call for bipartisanship on the one hand, yet not include the opposition in the planning of such a momentous occasion. For the record, I would have liked to see
Madam President, I am most grateful to my learned friend on the other side for yielding. Madam President, for the record, the Planning Committee for the national celebration of the 40th anniversary of our independence comprises a wide section of people from our community. I can promise you, Madam President, the Prime Minister did not ask anybody on that committee whether they were PLP or F&M. They are interested in Bahamian celebration of the Bahamian national independence. The minister is, of course, charged with carrying it out. This is not a political event. It is a national event, Madam President.
Madam President, I really am not criticizing the committee, and I'm not criticizing the composition of the committee. They've done a superb job to date. The point I wish to make is that there are contributions and suggestions that the opposition would have liked to make. There were occasions when I know that I have made certain overtures, and I'm just making the point that it is non-political, it's bipartisan, and the opposition could have been included to a further degree or a larger degree. I don't know what I need to withdraw, but I just am making the point that there were things that we wanted to say.
Madam President, I'm most grateful to my friend for yielding. Madam President, I believe that this young lady here, Senator, who has a very bright future on the national stage, means everything that she has said. I would then urge her to send her comments and her contribution to the committee. I would also ask all Bahamians within the sound of the Honorable Senator's voice and my voice equally to send their contributions to the committee for this momentous and very important national event.
Thank you. Madam President, I do look forward to attending as many of the events as possible, and I wish to applaud the private sector for taking up the mantle and by hosting a wide variety of independence events.
I particularly wish to thank Bishop Neil C. Ellis and the Mount Tabor Full Gospel Baptist Church for hosting the recent banquet honoring 40 outstanding Bahamian fathers. And yesterday, through the Honorable Senator Smith, we recognize that our colleague Senator Greg Burrows was one of the honorees. But with your permission, Madam President, I just wish to personally congratulate two of the father figures in my life who were also honored that evening. The first is my uncle, Mr. Basil Sands, and his contributions to this country in the field of accounting and in the lodge and as a father are well documented. He's always been a tower of strength to my grandmother and my mother and has been very supportive and influential during my life, even my entry into politics. Although I think if he had to choose, Madam President, I would be on the other side of the table. But and just another moment, Madam President, to recognize Mr. Cleophas Adley, who was also one of the fathers honored at that event, the director of the National Youth Choir. And he was also and continues to be very instrumental in my life and the life of hundreds of young people who are under his tutelage. And the exposure and training and confidence building that he gives young people and which he gave to me, many of us remain in his debt. Oh yes, and Honorable Senator Bazard sits here too, and she can attest to that, as well as hundreds of others, Madam President. But Madam President, it is said that 40 years connotes the completion of a generation. And therefore, as we commemorate 40 years, we mark, or we may consider it the end of a generation's work and signal a generation shift where a new generation, of which I'm privileged to be a part, will rise up and continue to take this country forward, upward, onward, together. I wish to honor and thank all of our forebears for their accomplishments, and I do not in any way seek to minimize what has been accomplished for our generation over the past 40 years. Yet, Madam President, in all that has been given to us materially, somehow the very important, I even say perhaps more important, intangible things like mutual respect, peace, contentment, and fellowship have been watered down through the generations. The elders used to teach young people, Madam President, that all you have is your good name and your reputation. And they also used to place human ideals, such as public service and behaving so that you have a clear conscience, over and above selfish ambitions or the amassing of material wealth. But now our country is 40, and we have found ourselves in a cultural and community crisis, which has served upon us an unprecedented level of criminality. However, I invite all of us, as we reflect on all that is good, to take a few moments and take a long look at where we are and recommit ourselves to passing on to the next generation the ideals and the values that made us great and brought us to this milestone of 40 years. Madam President, we are in the budget debate, and this budget highlights our country's growing debt. The government has claimed and continues to claim that the situation is one which it inherited. Well, truth be told, government is continuous, and when, I know my senators here will agree with me, when we are returned to office in 2017, we will inherit all the obligations of the government of the Bahamas. And this government is borrowing more than any previous government in such a short time frame. Indeed, Madam President, the $1 billion in borrowing over a 13-month period is more than the amount that the F&M borrowed in its entire last term in office. According to the budget estimates, this year's recurrent revenue is expected to come in at $1,380 million, down by 11%, or $170 million from the $1,550 million budget projection a year ago. But this is not at all surprising, Madam President, because we are still recovering from the worst recession the world has experienced in the last 80 years. And the Bahamas is a part of the world. Madam President, we all remember that the PLP vociferously criticized the F&M for the level of borrowing during our last term in office. All borrowing by the F&M was a part of our strategic plan to steadily navigate the Bahamas through the global recession. Madam President, the Bible says that by their fruits you shall know them. And the fruits, Madam President, of the F&M borrowings can be seen and touched. These include the new roads and infrastructure, the straw market, the new critical care block, just to name a few. Now, I don't like when you mention it, but say it. You know, and Madam President, as much as the F&M was criticized, the people of the Bahamas now are driving on smooth roads, clean water in the east. These are, Madam President, the fruits of the F&M borrowings. Our people, Madam President, endured some difficult times, and we continue to feel the effects of the worldwide depression. And even though, in the words of our Prime Minister, we are turning the corner, Madam President, after a year in office, we have yet to see the fruits of the PLP's borrowings. People's mortgages are still in arrears with no mortgage relief in sight. We are nowhere near to the the promised 10,000 jobs. BBC disconnections continue. I ask, Madam President, where are the fruits? Where are the fruits of the PLP borrowings? But now we are here to debate a budget which, when completed, will put this government's borrowing at $1 billion. First, there was the $504 million during the 2011-2012 budget exercise. Then, during what was supposed to be a mid-year budget exercise, but was only a budget statement, the government came back for another $100 million. Now, in this budget, they are asking to borrow another $465 million. That is unbelievable. Madam President, this is not an encouraging budget for young Bahamians. In this budget, Madam President, the allocation for independent schools has been reduced by over $300,000. After-school activities, funding for after-school activities has been reduced by $292,000. These same after-school programs that are so vital to providing wholesome activities and mentoring young children and steering them away from the life of crime. These very same after-school activities have been cut by $292,000. Funding has been cut. Madam President, Family Island scholarship funding has been cut by $104,000. And the subsidy for student loans has been reduced by $1.8 million. Indeed, the overall budget allocation for the Ministry of Education was reduced by $6.5 million. The Department of Education budget was cut by $2.1 million. BTVI's budget allocation has been cut by $1 million. And budgetary support for the College of the Bahamas has been reduced by $3.5 million. This is below the level that the F&M netted in May 2007. Meanwhile, Madam President, Friends and families are being hired. Friends and family members are being hired. And we can afford for the budgets. One example is seen in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, where foreign consular office budgets are increased. Yet, funds for students and young people, Madam President, are being cut. As for the National Training Agency, the budgetary contribution for the establishment of a training institute was more than halved, from $477,946 to $150,000. That is a reduction of $327,946. And this government says that they are serious about training. COB's budget allocation reflects a decrease, as I said, of $3.5 million, bringing the government's contribution to the college below not only last year's level, but to a level below that of 2007. This is not the same government who promised to double the investment in education. But, Madam President, as I said, by their fruits you shall know them. And where are the fruits? These are the fruits that the young people have to look forward to in this 2012-2013 budget. And this budget cut, may I say while I'm there, to COB is at a time when this government continues to boast about the College of the Bahamas attaining university status, which I know we came into this place several months ago and passed legislation, and that is all good. I am totally in support of the College of the Bahamas attaining university status. But the numbers here do not support the move towards attaining university status for COB. The government has not put their money where their mouth is on that issue, because we've seen a reduction by $3.5 million in COB's budget. Madam President, the fact that the Ministry of Education's budget was cut by $6.5 million, or 13%, yet the minister boasts of the much-needed new schools that will be built, and that is good. We need schools. The opposition supports the building of schools. But, Madam President, when we look at the money, when we look at the dollars and cents, how is it that we can build new schools, hire the additional teachers needed for the schools, secure the furniture, secure the materials, provide the administration staff, all of that, when the budget has been cut by $6.5 million? It is unfortunate that interest on student loans has been reduced from $2.8 million to $1 million in this year's budget. And we'd like to know whether the government will continue the commitment that it made, or the government of the Bahamas made a commitment to pay half of the interest of the students' loans. But if there has been a reduction from $2.8 to $1 million, I wonder whether the government of the Bahamas would continue its obligation as promised to pay half of the interest of the student loans who are on this program. I've determined based on the numbers, or it's safe to assume based on the numbers, that the government cannot be continuing the obligation that we left in place with the $1.8 million cut. Madam President, just to look at sports for a few moments, the F&M government was always very serious about the development of sports in this country. And we were very serious about sports, Madam President, because we were aware and continue to be aware that participation in sports encourages a healthy lifestyle. It builds strong character, teaching important lessons in discipline, commitment, and loyalty, which all give and which are all an important part of our wider goals and our larger goals of maintaining or building a better nation and building stronger individuals. But, Madam President, as I turn to sports in this budget, this is not a budget for the young people in sports. While the minister must be applauded, I must applaud the current minister for the announcement of the continuation of the F&M's plans to construct the centers of excellence in the family islands, and he also promised that sporting facilities will be built, and those are very good announcements. We support them 100% and applaud him for that. At the same time, Madam President, this budget cuts subsidies to student athletes by more than half. Do you know, Madam President, who will feel the backlash from this? The lower income families in our country who do not have the resources to fund or pay for membership in track clubs or private coaching fees. What are we saying to our young people? Yes, you may have raw talent, but if only you have the money for your coaching, will that talent be developed and take you anywhere? And while I'm there, Madam President, we have a habit in this country, and it's not a PLP habit, and it's not an F&M habit. It's a Bahamian habit that we have. When these athletes, and all of us experienced this right in this very place, when we watched our Golden Knights run that superb race and bring home the gold. In the Bahamas, we love to applaud and possess the end product, Madam President. We don't know what it is to be with these athletes before they make it to the big leagues. But this particular budget line item to provide scholarships for student athletes, that was the government's way, Madam President, of being with these student athletes on their journey to greatness, not just applauding them and owning them after we slap our Bahamian flag on them, after they have spent years suffering to develop their own talent and get their own scholarship however they will. Do your best. Do it however you could. But what we saw then, Madam President, was a need to start with them earlier in their journey so that we wouldn't be so hypocritical when they come home and bring the goal and we own them after doing nothing to help them get there. And Madam President, it is unfortunate that more than half of the money allocated for these students has been cut from the sports budget in the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture. Madam President, I have a particular question because I noticed in the line items under the head for Youth, Sports and Culture, the line item for the National Sports Authority is not repeated in this budget. You will recall that the F&M established the National Sports Authority. There was legislation. It is a statutory authority charged with carrying out of sporting facilities and the management of the stadium, etc. And there's no line item in the budget that provides for how that authority will be funded for this year. And so that is a question that the opposition poses to the members opposite, and we'd like clarification as to how the National Sports Authority will carry out its mandate without a budget allocation. Madam President, before I move from sports, Madam President, also we note under capital expenditure, and I just returned there, in the estimates of capital expenditure under the Ministry of Works, there is a line item, an allocation for the Kiwi Sports Center, the implementation of the Kiwi Sports Center National Master Plan. And of course, that's a master plan that the F&M implemented. Of course, I will always take every opportunity to remember the late Charles Maynard for his contribution and his energetic approach towards youth sports and culture in the country. And so, lest we forget, Madam President, it's always important to honor the contribution of those who've gone before us. But he was critical in the Kiwi Sports Center redevelopment project. And there's a line item on the capital expenditure, and there is a difference of $18.6 million. Now, we know some of that is explained because work has already been accomplished on the project, so it's not a criticism that the line item has been reduced, Madam President. More so, it's a call just for the government to explain what particular part of the redevelopment project we will see in this 2012-2013 budget. Will it be the Andre Rogers Baseball Stadium? Will it be the completion of the hot rod track? It's an important line item, Madam President, and we on this side wish to highlight that the youth and the sports community of the country need to be reassured that this government is not putting the Key Center master plan on the back burner, Madam President. On to culture for a few moments, Madam President. In the Prime Minister's budget communication, we were advised of the government's intention to spend $1 million on developing a Mardi Gras carnival, a week-long Mardi Gras carnival in the Bahamas during the pre-Lenten season. Madam President, in my research I've realized that Mardi Gras and Carnival are developed in mostly Roman Catholic countries and other jurisdictions, but mainly Roman Catholic countries, but the most popular Mardi Gras events are now held in New Orleans, Brazil, and Trinidad during the week before Lent. And those jurisdictions and countries, they have a history with these experiences, and those experiences are unique to their cultures, in the culture in which they developed. But it's of concern to me that this government wants to import an experience that would in no way be authentic to the Bahamas. Madam President, this is an insult to our culture. It's an insult to the artistic community. And I'm not the only one who feels this way, Madam President. And all of us who follow the news, we've heard criticisms from the cultural community. I'm not the only one. There was a recent article in the newspaper, a letter to the editor, written by Pam Burnside, the widow of Jackson Burnside, one of the greatest cultural persons or culturally aware persons known to the Bahamas, and they are all on the same accord that what needs to happen is the development of our own unique culture, not the importation. Madam President, Madam President, just a few reflections on crime. Madam President, crime and the fear of crime continue to be a problem in this country. Of course, we've heard the Honorable Attorney General and the Honorable Minister Bell, Junior Minister of National Security, outline the initiatives taken by this government to combat crime. And again, I want to say that I am glad at this point, based on contributions that we've heard yesterday and prior to that, that all sides have finally determined that the crime is not a PLP problem and crime is not an F&M problem, but it is a problem in the country. Madam President, at this point, murders continue at an alarming rate. Most recently, we can recall that even visitors now are feeling the brunt of crime in the country, as one was killed at the foot of Paradise Island Bridge and two were robbed just outside of downtown Nassau. But it's not an issue that Bahamians are also face crime every day, Madam President. I myself was just the victim of a home invasion 2 weeks ago, so we all know all too well that crime is affecting us in our homes, in our beds, while we're sleeping, while our children are home asleep. And Madam President, I really want the government to succeed on crime. I want the government to succeed on crime. Let there be no doubt in anyone's mind that we want the government to succeed in crime. And Madam President, the FNM, in its last term in office, realized that crime was everyone's business. And my learned colleague, Senator Bannister, outlined some of the legislative initiatives that the FNM implemented during its last term in office. Also, Madam President, the FNM government implemented video conferencing. And in a contribution, the Attorney General now boasts about how these technological advances are expediting cases and saving costs. But what the AG did not highlight, Madam President, was that this video conferencing system was introduced by the FNM government in March 2012. In fact, Madam President, we built the facility near Her Majesty's prison at Fox Hill, which allows in Her Majesty's prison at Fox Hill to allow inmates to make bail applications via video conferencing, rather than requiring them to be brought downtown to court. Further, the FNM introduced and passed legislation and implemented the administrative framework to make the system effective. Madam President, the Honorable Attorney General says that swift justice is working, but also at the same time acknowledges herself that the community in general still have yet to feel the effects of the improvements. But I have one or two questions as far as swift justice is concerned, Madam President. Firstly, there have been 121 murders since the POP took office on May 2012. 66 between the 8th of May and December 31st, and 55 to date. The opposition wished to know, of those numbers since the implementation of swift justice, how many charges have been laid in respect of those murders, how many of those cases have been brought to trial, and how many of those cases have been disposed of. Further, Madam President, as far as the judiciary is concerned, we heard the announcement of increasing the amount of judges of up to 20, which is good. The FNM would not oppose that. But, Madam President, as my colleague stated yesterday, the numbers do not bear that intention out in the budget. But specifically, we ask Madam Attorney General to speak to us in relation to the completion of the courts in the Anspacher building, Madam President, because in this year, Madam President, if this government let me be careful. It was important, Madam President, in our view, in the opposition's view, to continue with the construction of the courts in the Anspacher building. The decision by the government not to have those courts in place, those courts could have been in place by now, Madam President, is my point. We would not have to be looking for space for those additional 20, those additional judges. So because crime, Madam President, crime is an important issue, and crime and the fighting of crime in the judicial system is not a place where the political stop, review, and cancel would hurt our fight against crime. Madam President, one of my favorite topics in this place is urban renewal. Urban renewal, which is one of this government's crime-fighting tools. And Madam President, if urban renewal 2.0 is one of the pillars, and it was touted before the election, it has been touted throughout the year, we do not see in this budget how the government intends to continue to utilize urban renewal 2.0 as its crime-fighting, one of the weapons in its crime-fighting arsenal. In fact, Madam President, I feel that this is a cynical and contemptuous treatment of urban renewal in this budget, and I'll tell you why. Last year, Madam President, in the budget, there was a $15 million allocation in the Ministry of Finance head for the phased implementation of priorities in a charter for governance. That line item, Madam President, has disappeared. Of course, during our midterm budget, we asked the government what happened to the $15 million to account for it. I remember standing here and proclaiming how, as a new generation of Bahamian, I had become accustomed to accountability. But no accountability was forthcoming of the $15 million, Madam President. And now, in this budget, Madam President, there is a new item relating to small house repairs and urban renewal. And this $10 million that has magically appeared in urban renewal, in my estimation, Madam President, does not tell us exactly how Urban Renewal 2.0 is going to assist the government in its crime fighting plan. Madam President, Madam President, we ask that the government provide to us, because we also want Urban Renewal 2.0 to succeed. But Madam President, we were promised legislation for urban renewal. We were promised the establishment of an Urban Renewal Commission. That has not happened. Madam President, Urban Renewal operates at least 9 centers throughout the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And while I'm on that, Madam President, I believe that there are now 7 centers in the Bahamas, in New Providence. There were 9 under the F&M administration, but I understand that there are 7 centers operational in Nassau. And urban renewal has been extended beyond Nassau and New Providence to the Family Islands, Madam President. And while I'm on that, I understand that in Abaco there was a grand celebration heralding the arrival of Urban Renewal 2.0 to Abaco. A ceremony was held in front of certain rental premises that was going to be the headquarters in Central Abaco of the Urban Renewal 2.0 office. But Madam President, since that day, little, I wouldn't say nothing, but little has been done in the Urban Renewal Center in Abaco. And on our last information, the building now that's supposed to house Urban Renewal 2.0 had a for rent sign on it a few days ago. So I'd like to ask the government whether that is indeed the case that the Urban Renewal Office in Abaco is not functioning, and now the landlord has determined to put a for rent sign on their building. But I say all of that to say, Madam President, if the government intends to operate 9 or 10 urban renewal centers throughout the Bahamas and pay, Madam President, 2 co-chairpersons, I understand combined salaries of approximately $100,000 in benefits, and have premises and a office somewhere here in the downtown area, I believe East Bay Street, but I haven't confirmed that, Madam President, and I invite the government to confirm that to us. How is it that $10 million can do all of that and repair small homes, Madam President? I think that the allocation for Urban Renewal 2.0 is insufficient and should be more, especially because the government heralds it as one of its pillars for crime fighting. And we didn't cancel it, Madam President, and I wish to say, and I wish to ask the government, are the 4-H programs continuing in all of the urban renewal centers? That I spoke about it at least on 2 occasions, so I'm not going to belabor the point. But the F&M government was always committed to livable neighborhoods, community policing, which is all the thrust and theme of urban renewal. You bring it back and slap a label on it, but the point is it achieves the same purpose. And at the end of the day, $10 million, if you're going to run 9 centers, you're going to staff 9 centers, you're going to pay, you have paid co-chairpersons and other paid staff. There's no way that urban renewal can be an effective crime-fighting tool with an allocation of $10 million. Where the rest of the money is going to come from? Madam President, this budget does not give the young people of the Bahamas much to look forward to in this 1-year period. The National Endowment Fund grant has been decreased, as I said. Self-starters has been decreased. The endowment for sports, aid to student athletes, BTVI, the College of the Bahamas, decreased. So, Madam President, while we applaud or understand the need for fiscal responsibility, in my opinion, Madam President, the areas of youth, sports, and culture, particularly, Madam President, youth programs like Volunteer Bahamas, and Madam President, while I'm there, the line item for Volunteer Bahamas has been removed from this year's budget. I note that there is a program called 300 Connect. I know all about 300 Connect. I've been closely monitoring some of the persons involved with 300 Connect. To my mind, 300 Connect is the same thing as Volunteer Bahamas, or seeks to achieve the same goal. So we're not criticizing in any way the program 300 Connect. Once we are all on the same program, that the government needs to assist nonprofit organizations in their quest to mold and mentor young people of the Bahamas. There's no opposition to that from this side. What we wish to say, though, Madam President, is that there's certain areas, in my view, that ought to be sacred when we're talking about fiscal prudence or tightening the reins. And I don't mean to get, if I could get personal for just a minute. When we were all going through the recession, Madam President, and when I say we, the Bahamas, and housewives and mothers and fathers had to cut back and decide what things they had to do without, Madam President, to make the budget balance. There's certain things that relate to children and young people that are untouchable, in my view. That doesn't minimize the fact that we need to decrease spending. That doesn't minimize the point that we need to be fiscally prudent. All of that is understood and accepted. But, Madam President, in my humble opinion, when we come to youth and education, I think those matters are sacred. And if we are serious, in fighting crime, and if we are serious in getting the country back from a value perspective where we want it, this is the last place, Madam President, where we should be experiencing these budget cuts. But, Madam President, I'm looking forward to a day very soon. I'm looking forward to a day very soon when all of our work, PLP and FNM work to tackle the monster of crime can be seen and felt and touched. And I'm looking forward to that day when we return back to the value systems to which I spoke of earlier when I started. Because, Madam President, we cannot afford to fail. We cannot afford to fail for the next generation of Bahamians, because they will come back and ask us, what did you do? And so I thank you again, Madam President, for an opportunity to do the little part and do the little bit that I can do for the sake of my children and the children. Thank you.
You have to eat it. Get right. Madam President, noting the hour, I move that the business of the Senate do suspend until 2 p.m. today, the 20th day of June 2013.
It is moved and seconded that the business of this chamber stands suspended until 2 p.m. on this 20th day of June in the year of our Lord, 2013. As many as are in favor should say aye. Aye. Opposers, nay. The ayes have it, and it is so ordered. I cannot get out of this chair. Thanks.
As senators come to the end of their debate on the 2013-2014 budget, national budget, Senator Allison Gibson will, of course, do the wrap, and then it would be on to the heads and the end of this debate here in the Senate for the budget. And so 2 o'clock this afternoon, we'll be back here as we conclude debate on this national budget. See you at 2 o'clock. Enjoy your lunch.